And now, welcome to part 3, the where and how. First, please let me preface this by saying, honestly, that I'm no digital savant. Actually, until 2019, I would have classified myself as a Luddite because of my aversion to technology. To really paint a picture of my previous digital woes, I received an iPod in 2008, which I never opened because learning how to use it gave me tremendous anxiety, and I refused to get a cell phone until 2011, only giving in because it was mandated at work. Finally, for the longest time, I was a die-hard believer that virtual teaching could never, ever compare to in-person, face-to-face instruction. Well, all that started to change around 2018 when I saw the digital writing on the wall. It seemed like every PD, every training opportunity, every L&D, they were all focusing on digital literacy, instructing in hybrid classrooms, and knowing how to collaborate virtually. So, with much reluctance, I returned to do my Master's of Education in Online Teaching and Instructional Design in 2019. And over the last 3 years, everything about my attitude to technology has changed. Now, I cannot even conceive of education without edutech being front and center. And with this all too honest self-disclosure, let's move into the tools that make e-portfolios possible. From my experience on both sides of the recruitment and hiring fence, I've seen a lot of different portfolios created on a variety of platforms. However, from my own experience, my two favorites are Google Sites, if you're a Google Suite lover, or Wix, if you're not fully on board with the Google products. Other ones that I have used with relative ease in the past are WordPress and Dropbox, although Dropbox is more like a library of content and not exactly a website like my sample. In terms of WordPress, it is also extremely relatively easy to use, and both Google Sites and WordPress have a wealth of how-to videos on YouTube, as well as on their own company platforms. Dropbox is also extremely easy to use and is a widely collaborative platform to show your work, but it doesn't have the full capability of creating a website that can tell your full story or path. Finally, Wix has a variety of free options and great website design and functionality, but I personally found the learning curve a bit steeper, though the end product was very impressive. For those of you who don't want to or can't use full products, please consider using Wix or WordPress, which are great alternatives to creating a modern and easily shareable portfolio. Now, on to part 4. What exactly should I include in my e-portfolio? Although there are no hard rules around what content to display on your portfolio, there are certainly some areas you'd like to consider. First, I'd like to start with a home or landing page. On this page, I often include a good professional headshot, a tagline or motto that highlights my teaching philosophy, along with another digital content piece that showcases my personality. In this last respect, I have included my origin story, created through Powtoon, to demonstrate my range of digital literacy skills, as well as a quick written bio providing a brief elevator pitch of my career in education. Second, always remember to include samples. I'll dive deeper into what samples to include in the next few minutes. Third, I like to include visual representation of my education and professional development achievements by adding copies of my degrees, diplomas, and certificates directly on their own page. A fourth thing to consider is including an updated version of your resume and or cover letter if you want to skip the next few sections. I personally have not included my resume or cover letter. Instead, I chose to include 3 different sections that highlight my skills, experience, and philosophy around learning, education, and training. The first of these 3 sections highlights my methodology around how I see the process of learning and what learning principles I apply to developing, designing, delivering, and evaluating content. The second area focuses on what technology knowledge I bring to the table. I believe this is a very important section because it highlights not only what I know now, but also shows the high probability of transferable skills if the organization is using a slightly different LMS or ICT, as a lot of them have very similar functionality. Finally, I like to include a section that refers to my areas of expertise. There are certain audiences, purposes, and contexts that I prefer and have significant experience in. And I showcase this information to allow potential employers to know what topics, programs, subject matter experts, and other stakeholders I've worked with in the past to understand what I'm capable of doing as a learning expert. Finally, consider adding 2 more pages to your portfolio, including a testimonials or reference page, as well as a contact page. In terms of testimonials, I collect the written recommendations from my LinkedIn page and add them directly to my portfolio, along with the references, along with my referee's name, title, and their LinkedIn profile link. To wrap up my portfolio, I provide a variety of ways for people to contact me virtually, in person, and on the phone. Now that we have a better sense of what broad sections to include, let's start looking at what kinds of samples you should be saving and adding or developing in your free time to start building up your e-portfolio. As I mentioned previously, your portfolio is an ongoing project that requires frequent updating and revision. Over the past years, I've spent a lot of time collecting and creating samples that specifically highlight skills and qualifications I have been consistently seeing in job applications for L&D, training, instructional design, and talent management job opportunities. For example, after cross-referencing 15 different job applications, I was able to create a list of common skills and requirements that were consistent across most of these applications. From these applications, the following skill sets were the most in demand. LMS, ADDIE or iterative design process, AOTA knowledge, trauma-informed practice, diversity, inclusion, and equity, facilitation, e-development, Articulate Studio, specifically RISE and Storyline, analytics, needs assessment, evaluation, screencasting, leadership, professional development, adult learning principles, project management, effective written communication, ICT, Google Suite and Office 365, social media, coaching, performance review, and stakeholder engagement. Now, how exactly do you demonstrate all these concepts into samples? Let's look at one of my examples. Recently, I created communication content for a building code course with internationally trained architects and engineers. I included a sample of one of my 2-hour lessons, which highlights several of the skills I mentioned above. For example, I used RISE to create the program after completing a thorough needs assessment through meetings with a variety of stakeholders about program and learning outcomes. From there, I developed the content using adult learning principles in an iterative manner while integrating ICT like Padlet, Miro, Flipgrid, and Google Suite. The content included assessment and evaluation, along with participant feedback opportunities. And before publishing, I reviewed my content thoroughly to make sure it adhered to effective professional written communication standards and AOTA alignment. Finally, I ensured that my content was compatible across multiple digital modalities, mobile, laptop, and tablet, and could be completed synchronously through instructor-led training or fully asynchronously. Not only does this sample hit on multiple different keywords that are frequently reflected in current education-based careers, it also allowed me to take stock of all the different tasks or components I completed to create this content. By taking the time to reflect on the content, I have a fantastic future interview answer in case a prospective employer asks me how I create and evaluate content for adult audiences in a specific professional topic or focus. Before we move on to what we can and can't include in a portfolio, let's take a quick look around my portfolio to give you a better sense of what pages and work samples I've included for public viewing. On this first page, you are going to notice my landing or home page, where I have my motto at the top. Okay, I have my headshot. I have my origin story created through Powtoon, as well as a brief elevator pitch expanding or elaborating on my work history. From there, I have several subsequent tabs. My next tab are all my sample projects. All the projects that I have included here, I am allowed to include, but just for my own safety, I like to put disclaimers on my content explaining that everything is for view only and only may be used after the explicit consent given to them by me, the creator. So people know they're not allowed to duplicate my information without my permission. On this page, I've linked in relevant content, e-developed content, facilitation videos through TESL, as well as a variety of other lesson plans, instructor workbooks, participant workbooks, etc. I also provide extra information about access to LMS that I've created with an application key or an acceptance key to get in. And so there are many different examples of what I've done over the past 5 to 10 years, specifically within translating a lot of the work into digital instruction. On top of the sample projects, I have a subsection for education and upskilling, where I include documents, diplomas, degrees, certificates of all my training. I believe that self-directed continuous learning is a very important part of any field, but specifically our field. So I like to show prospective employers that I'm not sitting idly by, but I'm actively engaging in formal instruction, as well as personal development through LinkedIn Learning and George Brown Professional Development, so that I can keep my skills up to date and relevant. I also have a section entitled Methodology and Technology, where I outline my digital literacy skills, my pedagogy and andragogy, what I do around instructional design and agile design methodology, and the different types of platforms I can use to create e-learning content. In addition, I have a section that includes my areas of expertise, what subjects I've created content for, in what contexts, and with what target clientele. So people can open up these drop-down menus to get a much better sense of who I've worked for, when, and for what purposes. The final subsection is curriculum development, where it clearly elaborates all the content I've made for which clients and for what purposes. The next section is my testimonials section. All of these testimonials were provided to me through LinkedIn, and I've copy pasted the information so that people can get a better sense of how I work with others. Again, I can tell them I'm amazing, but having other people explain how I work with them provides a social proof that comforts many hiring managers into knowing that I'm the right fit for that particular company or job. Finally, my contact page. In this page, I've provided ways that people can connect with me on LinkedIn, by my phone, and my email. If you are a little bit concerned about giving out too much information, giving your email and LinkedIn profile should be sufficient to get people to get in contact with you. So this is what my portfolio looks like, and I frequently update it every time I have any new learning or have completed any new tasks or have a relevant new sample. So now the important question. Can I include all my past samples? The simple answer is no. Typically, here's how I operate. I include all my self-directed professional development content created through volunteering contributions or from previous contracts that did not explicitly identify content development as part of the scope of my practice. In addition, I have found and used a lot of relevant samples from my past academic work. However, there are certain pieces of content you should not include. The first and most important is work you completed for a company where it is explicitly stated that the content is proprietary and that your scope includes content development and revision for that organization. In addition, some companies require you to sign an NDA or non-disclosure act. In these cases, do not upload the content whatsoever. What if you have done great work in these no areas? Can you use it? Well, you technically have two choices. You can either amend content that you created by changing it enough that it doesn't address or speak to the previous company's goods or services. Yes, this does take a bit of time, but you've already probably created a very good roadmap in terms of what to include and how to build it quickly and effectively. The second option is to reference the content by briefly explaining audience, purpose, context, and outcome, and offer to provide prospective employers with a view-only link during the interview phase, with the explicit mention that this content is for view-only purposes and may not be replicated for any reason without the creator's consent. That being said, get in the habit of saving everything you do. Use Dropbox, Google, or any other cloud-based library to keep digital copies of the work you've done, because you never really know when you'll need that perfect example on your portfolio for that next big job opportunity. So with that, let's start to head into part 5, resources. In part 5, I'll introduce you to a few resources that I have found very helpful in creating and maintaining my ePortfolio. Here are a few great resources that have helped me not only understand why ePortfolios are necessary, but also how to build an effective and user-friendly version in Google Sites. The first resource is a scholarly, peer-reviewed article for the International Journal of ePortfolio that highlights the value of career portfolios on applicant performance. This article provides the why you should have a portfolio for career development and success. Ultimately, what this research found was that people who had an up-to-date portfolio produced significantly better outcomes in interviewing than those candidates who did not have a portfolio. The second source is from Global Focus and explains what employers really think about candidates who provide them with career e-portfolios. Of the employers interviewed, the two most significant reasons were that portfolios provided hiring managers with a better feel for the person's personality, communication style, and interpersonal skills, and gave a more comprehensive view of the technical skills the candidate brings to the table. The third resource is from Monster and provides a variety of high-level tips for how to create an impactful and memorable e-portfolio. Finally, the last resource is from Flipped Classroom Tutorials, where the EduTech facilitator explains how to make a website on Google Sites that is visually appealing, user-friendly, and easily adaptable. Above, I've only provided 4 resources, although there are hundreds of others of amazing sources that speak about the value of e-portfolios. If you're just getting started, these 4 sources can certainly set you in the right direction. Before we conclude, I wanted to take a moment to review the learning for today. Over the past 2 to 3 years, there has been a significant shift in education, where a lot more opportunities are appearing in education-adjacent fields like L&D, digital specialists, talent management, and many others. For those who are eager to explore these new opportunities, the vast majority of job postings are now asking for social media profiles, websites, and most specifically, e-portfolios demonstrating the education specialist's breadth of skills through work-related samples. Having an e-portfolio is an essential step in today's education job search landscape. However, aside from what employers want, e-portfolios positively impact the portfolio designer. For those candidates who actively engage in career portfolio development, they are vastly better prepared for job search activities because they consistently remind themselves of their past, current, and future work goals and accomplishments. This process significantly reduces time when you begin your job search. Furthermore, the portfolio instills in the creator a heightened sense of accomplishment over past achievements, as well as an increase in self-efficacy by compelling self-reflection on successes and failures that helps candidates understand what they know, what they don't, and how to fill these gaps. In essence, engaging in portfolio development creates employees who are confident with high self-efficacy, which mirrors the top skills required by companies, including self-directed learning, ability to pivot, and effective decision-making. Though there are a number of platforms to create amazing portfolios, the most dominant options include Google Sites, WordPress, Dropbox, and Wix, all with varying capabilities and learning curves. I personally love Google Sites because it's an easy way to integrate my other Google Cloud documents and artifacts. But many of these platforms are fully aligned with whatever cloud-based storage you're using, whether that's OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, or etc. Finally, if you leave with nothing else, I want you to keep the image of the tree in mind. Your resume, like the tree you see, can only tell so much about your career. It really is a snapshot or appetizer to interest the employer. However, a great e-portfolio that you link into your resume and or cover letter serves to tell the full, comprehensive story of your career through each of the thousands of roots anchoring that tree. Having an e-portfolio allows you to tell the full story without breaking important employment protocol like resume length, and without leaving you feeling like you haven't done an incredible career justice by having to limit everything into just 2 short pages. And that's all I have to say about portfolios at this time. I would love to hear from you to find out what you found most useful in today's video. And if you'd like me to explore any topics discussed in further detail. And as always, let's connect. Career success often boils down to who you know. So I would love for you to be part of my network by connecting with me on LinkedIn so we can collaborate in the future. And I'm always available to support you in your career path through tailored coaching, networking strategies, interview preparation, and onboarding success. Talk soon. Bye.